The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to get started here in just another minute or two. In the meanwhile, if someone wouldn't mind in the chat box, just confirm with me that you can hear me all right. Everyone's line is muted, so unfortunately I can't hear any of you, but if I can just get a confirmation that you can hear me all right, that would be great. Thank you. Excellent. So good afternoon, everyone. Lots of familiar names and faces on the line today, and many of you know me through my various visits to the UK over the past few years. So my name is Jeremy Roth. I'm the Director of Professional Services for Jonas Club Management. I am based out of our Toronto, Canada office, and I've been with Jonas since about 2013, so a good 7 years now. A fun fact about me, I'm a father of two. I have a newborn at home. So waking up early in the morning is no issue for me at all at this moment in time. And I'm an avid gardener. We've been blessed with fantastic weather here in Toronto this summer. So it's been great to be out and about in the garden. So just a couple of things about our webinar today. So the audio is muted for all of you. If you have any questions for me throughout the presentation, you can use either the chat box or the questions box. To ask me a question. I'll do my best to check over periodically, but I have left a good amount of time towards the end of today's session to answer any of those questions that you might have. A copy of this session, the recording for it, will be available online on our YouTube website. The link is there for you. As well, you should have a section in this GoToMeeting for a couple of downloads. The downloads do contain a copy of the slide deck from today that I'm currently presenting with, as well as our document for some considerations when changing VAT or tax codes in your Jonas system. So just a bit of a running order or agenda for this afternoon. Why we're here, I think we all know why we're here, but just a bit of a concept there. I do want to do a very comprehensive review with all of you folks on the phone of our tax reporting system in Jonas. I think it's a good review given the current circumstances to just run down, give you the full understanding of how tax and VAT reporting are configured in your Jonas system, where are the different places you can set up tax reporting in Jonas, or those tax reporting codes, a little bit about VAT or tax adjusting entries, some of the utilities that we have available to you, and then really some of the considerations that you should make prior to going live with some of these tax changes that are affecting you in the very near future. And we also have a bit of a new feature there called the VAT chits summary on your chits that I'd like to review with you today, because it's also a very timely consideration that some of the clubs on the phone might want to consider. So this is why we're all here, right? So COVID-19 has obviously impacted the way our businesses are conducting business at the current moment in time, but also with regards to how the governments in certain countries are responding to the changing business climate. And what we've seen is in the UK specifically, an ability to provide relief to some of the businesses there with the concept of reducing VAT. There also is this concept of the Eat Out scheme, which I know some of you are curious about as well. I won't be covering that off in great detail today. There still are quite a few unknowns for us on that one right now, and we're sort of in the research stages, and we still have a few weeks before that comes into effect. So I'll discuss that and cover that off on a separate slide a little bit later in the presentation. But what we've noticed as well is that as the UK has come out with some of these tax or VAT reliefs, we've also noticed some other countries start doing the same, or at least considering doing the same. So for example, Saudi Arabia has also come out with a temporary, in their case, increase to VAT and many countries in Europe as well. So Germany, Cyprus, Belgium, and Austria also following suit with some VAT relief for their businesses. And based on what we've heard in the news, I think we're going to see a bit more of that. So the intent of this presentation from Jonas's perspective is to equip all of you folks with as much knowledge and understanding of what the setup within your Jonas system looks like for your various VAT and tax setups. We always suggest that you consult with your local governing bodies and tax experts to understand and translate how these tax or VAT rules apply to your club and your business specifically. At the end of this presentation, I've highlighted some links. I'm sure many of you folks on the phone have already reviewed HMRC's documentation for some of these changes. But I've also linked some of that information for you in this presentation as well. And we're also covering off what we understand as being the normal, usual, and customary way that our clubs are implementing VAT within their Jonas system. And the only reason I mention this is because we do notice some weird and wonderful translations and understandings of some of the tax laws and some of the different legislations that govern our clubs. So all of you folks on the phone know your operations best. So what we're trying to do here is kind of cover off the standard or the norm. So to start off with, so tax reporting. So this program is probably used by 99.99% of our clubs and is really used to track tax on sales and purchases to assist clubs in the preparation of their tax remittances. There is also a utility within this program, and some of you might have been familiar with this from previous increases to VAT or tax in the various countries that you are from. We do not suggest using this tax change utility given the current circumstances in the UK. Simply because this is an across-the-board change for every single place within your Jonas system that you maintain a VAT code or a tax code. So more suitable for scenarios where a government would come to you and say, the VAT is being increased from 20 to 22% or decreased across the board, which really isn't the case based on the current VAT relief that we've seen in the UK. It's very specific to certain parts of the business, so it wouldn't be an across-the-board change. There's also a very useful report within the tax reporting module that I'll cover off in a little bit more detail further on in this presentation. That does highlight for you everywhere within your Jonas system that you have taxes or VAT codes set up and what the related rates are that you have set up as well. And this report will be very instrumental in both understanding what parts of the system you have to tackle to undertake some of these changes, but also then a mechanism to go back and check your work as well. So when we review steps to implement or change VAT within your system, my suggestion is to run this report as a first step and then also run it as a last step to just check your work as well. So all of you within your Jonas system under administration have this tax reporting menu. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, the intent here is to just review all the different setups that you have. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I do want to just highlight some key points here. So your tax reporting system is set up with tax reporting group codes, tax reporting dates, the codes themselves, and then exemption setups as well. So for the majority of you, you have one tax group code. You might have more than one if you have more than one company set up in your Jonas system, or if you remit VAT to HMRC separately for whatever reason, you might have more than one tax group code set up. Sometimes we see this for the pro shop. So the Golf Pro would remit their own VAT, so they would have their own group code set up. The majority of you folks, though, probably have just one. You also have your tax reporting dates. So this is the definition in Jonas. We typically recommend this as being a yearly maintenance item to come in here and set up all of your different tax reporting dates. For the vast majority of our clubs around the world, these are month-ending dates because VAT is remitted either monthly or quarterly, just depending on where you are in the world. So this is typically a once a year sort of setup that's done. Tax reporting codes. So this is where things might vary from club to club, just depending on how you have your Jonas system set up. Some clubs use the traditional T1 through T9 VAT codes in the UK. Some are not, but kind of follow that same structure. So you have a standard VAT rate, an exempt rate, a zero rate, etc., but they're not labeled as a T1 through T9 code. Doesn't really matter in Jonas either way, just so you know. And the other consideration here specifically for this VAT relief that we're seeing in the UK and some other countries is some clubs are making the consideration of, do I need a new VAT code set up to reflect this temporary change? So that decision is again case by case, club by club. But if you did need to set up a new tax code or a new VAT code to reflect and be able to track that temporary relief separate from your standard VAT, this is where you would come in and define that VAT code. Now, for those of you familiar with your Jonas system, you'll also know that this is not where we store the rate itself. So this is just the code. And then we go into the various parts of the Jonas system and link this VAT or tax code, and then also define what the rate is further throughout the actual setups in Jonas. And then you also have a tax exemption set up within this module as well. So for anything that is exempt of VAT or exempt of tax, you can actually come in here and define what those codes are. So especially for clubs on the line from the UK, pretty much exclusively you have the option now to remit tax digitally. So we have gone through the making tax digital process and certification through HMRC. So you have two complementary reports to assist you with doing that. One is the company tax report, which breaks out your input tax and your output tax, or input VAT and output VAT, through the various components of your Jonas system. And then you also have the actual VAT return analysis, which is UK specific, which is the actual physical submission process to HMRC. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these two topics because it's one that pretty much all the clubs on the phone are probably doing month to month at this moment in time. So like I mentioned, we do have a report within Jonas called the Tax Reporting Utility. And this does allow you the option to list all of the tax codes within your Jonas system. And it reports out both bits of information for you. So all the relevant VAT codes or tax codes that you have set up and what percentages you have set up as well. So very, very useful report. I'm just going to drag over my Jonas system here for just a second. So again, within administration and then tax reporting, all of you have the option here to something called the tax reporting utility. You do have a couple of options here. For the scenario we're discussing today, I'd recommend printing this with the first or the default option, which is all tax setups. And then a simple print here, you do have the option to export here as well. With all of our print options, you always have the option to either view it on the screen or take it to Excel. I'm probably being a bit redundant here with some information that you already know, but perhaps for some that are not as familiar. And then this is what the output for this report looks like. So you do have to kind of scroll down a little bit here. We do store standard tax codes for Canada within your Jonas system. This is just a compliance thing that we have to do, so you'll have to skip through those. And then further down, you'll start seeing all of your specific setups to your club specifically. And this is an exhaustive list of all of the VAT or tax setups that you have within your Jonas system. So everything from the item groups to maybe a little bit more of the abstract, which is things like your package revenue items and point of sale. Anywhere within Jonas that you can link a VAT or a tax code and define a percentage for that tax is something that you would find on this report. And I've just put in a couple screenshots in here for you folks. Again, if you want to go back and reference this material after today's presentation, I've done so in here for you as a reference point. As some of you might be familiar with as well within tax reporting, we do have two options specifically for UK clubs and one option for anyone outside of the UK for how to edit your tax reporting data. So if for whatever reason something was set up incorrectly and posted to a T1 code and should have gone to a T3 or T4, you do have the option within Jonas to come in and make a VAT or a tax rate adjustment and basically say this specific invoice number or this specific chit was coded as a T1 but was incorrectly coded as such and should in fact go to a different VAT code. So again, I'm bringing this up more so because, with the impending change, we're all human beings, mistakes might happen. So it's good to know where you can come in and make these adjustments after the fact, should you need to. Um, the other one for the UK specifically here is a VAT adjustment. And really the big difference between a VAT adjustment versus the edit of tax reporting data is that within VAT adjustments, you can actually make a nominal account entry or a journal entry as well to reflect that change versus the editing tax information option. You don't have that available to you. Otherwise, the exact same process here where you can come in and literally adjust chits or invoices, any of the different areas of your Jonas system where you've input a tax value and make an adjustment to it and make the corresponding nominal entry as well or journal entry as well. So a couple of different options available to you. As I mentioned very early on when we were going through the running order for today, there is also a company tax rate change utility that changes all of the tax or VAT setups within your Jonas system, all of the different rates. And it's basically a find and replace. So it basically says find everything that's defined as 20% VAT in my Jonas system and change it to X percentage. So again, for those of you that have read up a little bit on some of the temporary VAT relief that's happening within the UK, you'll know very quickly that this wouldn't be applicable to this scenario simply because that temporary relief for VAT doesn't apply to every single option or component that you are charging VAT on. So some things will still be standard to the standard rate, the 20% rate. So unfortunately, this option would not be available in this circumstance. The next component here that I'd like to go through, and probably the most important for the impeding changes for tomorrow and kind of going forward, are all the different areas within your Jonas system where you do have those tax reporting codes that we just reviewed set up, as well as the related rates that you have set up. So what I have here on this slide and the next slide is really just another reference point to all of you folks on the phone, and that would be all the different areas within your Jonas system that you could potentially have VAT or tax set up. So keeping in mind, you might not have all of these modules within your Jonas system, and you might not have VAT set up in some of them, and some of them might not apply to you. So just keep that in mind. But just to start off here, within club management, there are a few different areas that you have VAT set up within your Jonas system. The first one being club management, club setup within the club profile, and then the taxes option. So for each one of these slides up at the top of the screen, I have given you the option here to go ahead and just view what the menu path is for this item. So you just should see that there at the top of each one of these slides. And then within this screen specifically, we define, if you are using our fee billing program, what is the typical VAT or tax that's being charged and what report code does that go to. Now we do have an override to this on the fee billing levels. So this would be the blanket statement to say all fee billings are subject to this VAT rate and this VAT code. And then there is an override for individual fee billing schedules as well. Likewise, locker billings, minimums, miscellaneous charges, and club invoices have this tax definition as well. And then a little bit more specifically here, within interest codes, you do have an option to charge VAT on interest codes as well, and link your VAT code within here as well. Now, some of you might be kind of scratching your heads wondering, why I'm pointing this out might not necessarily fit in with the definition of what we've seen with regards to the temporary VAT relief from the UK government specifically. Like I mentioned earlier on, we've seen some very weird and wonderful things sometimes. So in some clubs, they only charge interest on food and beverage charges. Therefore, it's considered food and beverage revenue for clubs. Therefore, it's considered VAT that's related with that type of transaction. So it might be subject to a bit of interpretation there, but we're really just trying to point you folks to every area within your JONA system that you might have VAT set up that might be impacted by these changes. Within your item groups as well, this is definitely one that a good number of clubs on the phone are using. So used pretty much exclusively for club chit processing and club invoices. So all of these rely on item groups, and some of these item groups might be subject to some of these VAT changes. So you do have the option to either come in and update an existing item group with a new rate and a new code, or alternatively, you can do a save as here and create new item groups as well, whatever you think might be easier. Also considering that, you know, what you're going to be changing tomorrow or in future days, you're eventually going to have to be changing back as well. So just something to consider. So as I mentioned as well with fee billings, individual fee billing schedules also have the option to be modified for VAT rates and codes. So this is an override. So although we have a basic definition or an overall definition within the basic club profile, you can override tax and VAT rules individually, fee billing schedule by fee billing schedule. Might apply to you, might not apply to you, but we are pointing that out here for you as well. Then within point of sale systems, so this is probably a big one as well, probably affects the vast majority of the clubs on the phone with us this afternoon as well, is within point of sale system parameters and then taxes. You do have all of your point of sale tax codes as well. And again, I'll kind of talk about this a little bit more in subsequent slides, but based on our understanding, the temporary VAT relief applies to most food and beverage, but not all. For example, alcoholic beverages are still subject to the standard VAT rate, the 20% VAT rate, for example. So there will have to be some breaking out there. So if you're currently using the same VAT code, the same standard VAT code for both alcoholic and non-alcoholic and food sales, you might have to break out your point of sale tax codes a little bit more specifically to facilitate for that breakdown. As well as it depends on how your point of sale categories are set up, which I'll touch on in a little bit for you as well, just to be mindful of that. So one thing I'd like to call out here is you do have the option to set up point of sale in advance. So whereas the rest of the setups that we're going through, you kind of have to do it, you know, tomorrow morning or whenever you're going to start putting into effect these different VAT rate changes. Point of sale is something that you can do ahead of time. And the way you can do that here is I'm just going to jump into my point of sale system for a second and just demonstrate this to you. So for any one of my tax codes, so for my standard VAT here, I can, for example, do a save as option here, save it as the exact same code if I wanted to, and just put in a new effective date. So really in effect, what I'm saying here is that, you know, effective whatever date, I can in fact come in and set that up ahead of time and then define what the new rate will be within my JONAS system. And then JONAS will automatically pick up and put into effect that change effective whatever date you have set up here. So this is a bit of a time saver and a bit of a efficiency tool that you can use to kind of set things up today, so you're not as rushed doing everything tomorrow. And just a couple of screenshots there. So again, this can all be kind of set up ahead of time. If you are wanting to set up new point of sale tax codes, again, to break out from the existing ones. You can do that as well, and again, set them up with an effective date where they would only come into effect, let's say tomorrow or the day after. Again, might be a bit redundant here for some of you on the phone, but perhaps for those of you not as familiar, those point of sale tax or VAT codes get linked within the sales categories that you have set up within Jonas, and they could be in potentially two different places. One is right on the main screen here. So you have the option there right within the main screen here to set up a tax code, but you also have a tab here called tax override where you can in fact override the tax rules for specific sales areas within your Jonas system as well. So you could potentially have this set up in one of two different places within the sales category. And then the last one for point of sale is that you can also set up tax codes within specific sales items when it comes down to package revenue items as well. So really a suggestion for both of these is this is where the tax rate change utility comes very much so handy. Some of you have a good number of sales categories and a good number of sales items, so it'll quickly and easily highlight for you what those items are. Alternatively, you can do an F9 report within these as well, and that might also identify for you what some of those setups are. So I'll use sales categories as an example here. I can hit F9 here and design myself a bit of a report here and pull over specific fields, so the category code, the category description, the tax code, and then I might want to do the same thing for my tax overrides. Now your tax overrides might have more or less options here. The number of options you see here is based on the number of sales areas that you have set up within your Jonas system. Again, those of you a little bit more familiar with Jonas, you can also save this report so you don't have to create it each time. So I can just call this my VAT setup report, and that way when I hit F9 next time, that will be an option for me, so I don't have to click and drag all those codes again. And there's just a highlight for me of my setups. So this quickly and easily identifies for me all the sales categories I have set up in my food and beverage partition, and then if any of those categories have any overrides set up for them as well. Very quickly, just touching on sales items as well. Very similar process within here. So if I hit F9 and then my standard F9 report generator, I already have one set up in here called package revenue. You have all the options here on the left-hand side of the screen to pick all of the different package revenue setups or different lines that you can have defined. And again, you can go ahead and call this report to display for you any of those packages. So what I did in my report is, as opposed to just clicking and dragging all the fields over and getting a huge report of all the sales items and potentially those with package revenue set up, I also put a bit of a condition into my report. So my condition for that report is that I said that the first line of my package revenue has to have an amount greater than 0. And what that does for me is it just goes ahead and filters out any of the sales items that are actually set up within here, as opposed to getting all of my sales items. So just a bit of a shortcut to get just the information that I need. Again, I know I make it look a bit easy, but if you need help with this kind of stuff, our support team can help you run these reports as well. If you need that information and you're having a bit of issues getting that information out for you. So switching gears a little bit within your banquet and catering system, again, depending on how you have your banquet and catering system set up, you have one of two different options. So a good number of you probably use your point of sale tax rules within banquet and catering, but your banquet and catering system can also be configured standalone to also have its own VAT or tax rules set up within it. So just depending on what or how you're set up, you have either or of these options set up, and it'll be very clear to you once you come into your system profile within banquet and catering which option you're on. So me specifically, I'm using my point of sale tax rules. That flag is on. You can't turn that flag on once it's on. So you don't really have to do anything else within this screen. Some of you might have your VAT or tax codes defined into here. And if they're not grayed out, that flag isn't on. That means you do have to update your VAT rates and VAT codes within here. The other option here for banquet and catering is that if this does apply to you and you are charging or collecting VAT on deposits in banquet and catering, there is a separate definition or a separate menu option for that as well that you want to consider. So within administration system setup and company tax rules, you do have the option to set up VAT codes within here as well. This would be used predominantly for clubs that use marina management, as noted in my little note here at the top of the screen. So if you are a marina management user, more likely than not, you do have tax rules defined within here that you're going to want to potentially consider as well. So just something to be aware of. And then within the marina management system specifically, there are 4 different places that you can define those different VAT codes that I'm just calling to your attention here as well, that could potentially be impacted by this change. Within the hotel management system, a few different places that you define VAT or tax as well. The main one being within the billing and receipt codes part of the system. So each one of your billing and receipt codes has the potential to link a VAT code right on the main screen. Secondarily as well, you also have the option within the billing and surcharges of the same menu option, so in all of your billing and receipt codes, to define specifically what the surcharge code is and then what the rate is for that VAT as well. So something, again, that you'd like to consider. My best suggestion here as well is you do have that tax reporting utility. I think it's a fantastic resource, but as well within hotel management, just like for point of sale, so again, within your setup menu and your billing receipt codes, if you wish, you can do an F9 report in here as well and design your own report so you can pull out those different VAT setups or tax setups as well so you can review them. And the last one here from a hotel perspective is similar to banquet and catering. You do have a setup within the general hotel profile for tax or VAT on deposits. So something else that you'd like to consider because there is a rate and a tax reporting code that's defined within there as well. Couple of last ones. So within administration and then your company profiles, you do have a definition for the VAT rate and VAT reporting code within here as well. This is used almost exclusively for accounts payable. And then within accounts payable as well, just calling to the fact that you do have a tax distribution option within the payables module on an invoice by invoice basis. On the main screen here, whenever you're inputting any invoices within your Jonas system, it typically pulls the VAT rules from your company profile, but then you do have a tax distribution option here as well, where you can in fact go in and override or redistribute the VAT to any other rates or codes that you wish as well. The last thing I'd like to pull out from or point out from a setup perspective is just a relatively new feature that we have within Jonas. So we've been able to design your own forms, design your own chits within Jonas specifically for quite a few years now. But as of this current advanced release version of Jonas, so version 2020 of Jonas, you do have the option to display a VAT summary at the bottom of your chits if you're designing them on your own. So design your own forms allows clubs to design their own chit however they'd like to. And one of the nice features that you have in there is we have two different options now. One to do a VAT summary by rate percentage, or one just to do a VAT summary. And on my next slide here, I show you what both of those options look like. So the first option there is the VAT summary by percent option. So as the name implies, it breaks it out by percentage for you, and then also gives you a summary or a legend of what the different VAT rate codes are. Again, depending on what they are, how they're set up within your Jonas system, it allows the member or guest to kind of decipher what those codes mean, as they might not be as obvious on the system. Not everyone knows what a T code necessarily equates to, so we give them the description of those codes. Or the other option is at the bottom here is to just show them just what the rate code is and what the net amount is, tax and the total. So nice option. I thought it was nice to point out here, especially in light of the fact that you most likely are now going to have different VAT rates within your Jonas system at point of sale. So it might be something that you want to consider in terms of breaking out the different rates so that members can see that on their chit, as well as it's been something that I think a lot of clubs have been asking us for a while now. If you need help designing your chit, or if this is all news to you, we do have a very nice video on our YouTube website that walks you through how to design your own forms. There's one specifically on designing your own chit. We also can do things like design your own preparation orders to the kitchen and whatnot. So I'm just highlighting the video here with regards to designing your own chit, but there are a few more on our YouTube website that might be useful for your club as well. In terms of going live, so there's quite a few different steps that need to be undertaken. So what we're doing here is just highlighting what some of those considerations are and when they should be done. So in advance, i.e. now, if you haven't already, a few things that you should consider. You should really ensure that you're on a very recent version of Jonas, so either version 2019 or 2020 of Jonas. All the UK clubs on the phone, for the most part, you more than likely are on this version already, just because of all the changes we've made to making tax digital last year and whatnot. For the majority of clubs on the phone, you already are on at least version 2019, but if you're not, you really should be. Run and review the tax reporting utility report that I pointed out a bit earlier. A really good tool to kind of help spotlight for you the different areas within your Jonas system that you should be reviewing. You can set up any tax reporting codes if that's applicable or something that your club would like to do. There's no reason why you can't do that now. And for point of sale tax codes specifically, you can go ahead and set up all of your different effective dates. This isn't something that you have to do on the day of. Of course, go live day, or on the day that these changes come into effect. For the UK specifically, this would be tomorrow. For some clubs elsewhere in the world, in the Middle East, this is in the next week or two. A couple of considerations. All of this, by the way, is highlighted for you. So again, within the handouts, the changing VAT rates document that we sent out in the original email, again, is attached here in this presentation for you as well, highlights all these different steps for you as well. And as I mentioned as well, you have a full download of the slide deck as well. So you have all this information available to you. So make sure that all of your point of sale end of day updates up to and including the date before you want the new tax or VAT rates to become effective have been done. So tomorrow morning, first thing you should do is run all of your point of sale end of day updates. Within club management, if you do any batch chit processing, so I'll just point that out to all of you folks on the phone if it's not something that you might be as familiar with, or might be someone else that's not on the phone today does. Within this portion of the system, you have two different ways to run chit processing. One is just the standard chit processing screen where you come in and you've got your grid and you're coming in here and doing all of your different invoices that you're associating to member accounts. This is what we call a bulk entry screen. So you can come in here and enter in as many members as you want and invoice them at one time. There's no save option here, so you can't exit out of the screen without losing all of your work. So if you try to back out of here, it's always going to say to you, are you sure you want to get out of here? You're going to lose everything that you just did. Probably a familiar screen for some of you on the phone. The other option here, though, is that you can set up a chit batch. So a chit batch is something, and we've got this option throughout the system. So you have this in payables as well. We have this in general ledger for nominal account entries as well. So you can in fact set up batches, and batches allows you to come in, define the batch, and come back multiple times, save your work, and then come back and add more. So what we're just highlighting for you here is just make sure if you are using any batch processes within Jonas that you've gone ahead and posted those or deleted those batches, because again, a batch that you have in progress now would be subject to the old VAT rates. And probably wouldn't apply to the new VAT rate. So you want to make sure all that stuff is posted and closed out or deleted before you move forward with any VAT rate changes. Last one here, or second last one here, hotel night audits should all be run up to and including the evening before the new VAT rates come into effect. And any banquet bookings that would apply to the old tax or VAT rate would need to be at least pre-settled, if not final billed, prior to undertaking any of these changes as well. The one additional step for banquet and catering is that you do have to run the recalculate bookings option within banquet and catering processing. So might be something that some of you are familiar with, but some might not be as familiar with. So within the processing option in banquet and catering, you do have the option in here to come in either all bookings, selected bookings, or date range, and recalculate the VAT on any of these bookings that you have still outstanding. So very important to do. If you don't do that, it won't pick up any of the updated VAT rates, just so you know. So once you've run through those four, kind of typical day-to-day processes that you would have to do, then you would go in and update all the different tax rates and tax reporting codes. Again, because this typically has to be done at the start of business day, it might unfortunately mean a bit of an earlier start for some of you folks on the phone. So as much pre-planning as you can do is good, obviously. So the tax reporting utility, if you review that report, highlight it, take it to Excel, that will kind of zero in on the different areas within your Jonas system that you would then have to come in and update tomorrow morning or whenever this is applicable to you. And the one thing I've highlighted in red here for you is that this must be done for all applicable companies, partitions. If you have test companies that you're used to using in Jonas, so many of you have a company 99 within your Jonas system, which is your testing or your training company. If you rely on those databases, either for day-to-day business needs or for testing purposes, make sure that you consider the fact that you're going to have to change all of those different companies, partitions, and setups within Jonas that would be impacted by this. And last consideration is rerun that tax reporting utility report once you're done, cross-check everything, tick it off, make sure that you've covered all different parts of your Jonas system that you would have wanted to cover. So for follow-up, so monitor posting programs. So we always suggest that you, pay close attention to your end of day updates, your hotel night audit. But again, for most clubs, as they get into a day-to-day habit, it might not be reports that you're reviewing with a lot of consistency or with a lot of detail, just because you're just used to seeing, the expected outputs out of those modules. But just something to keep in mind, you've made a pretty significant change to your Jonas system. So good to kind of keep a close eye on those audit trails for the first few days. Make sure everything is calculating appropriately from a VAT perspective. So just paying a bit of closer attention to that. Obviously, it's a bit easier if you catch errors earlier on. It's a lot easier to adjust a day or two of transactions as opposed to a month, and that's what we typically see is that either we have clubs that catch it early on, or they catch it at the end of the month. Catching it at the end of the month is a bit more of a challenge. There's a little bit more to have to adjust, so the earlier you catch it, the better. Reviewing the company tax report is another great option as well, just to kind of reconcile data, see how things are calculating through. Obviously, any gleaning issues will stick out at you right away. It's a pretty significant change, especially in the UK, from 20 to 5%. So, it's good to kind of review the data that you have. Obviously, the company tax report, you've got a couple of different options with how you can run this report. Um, and again, each club kind of does this differently, but within the company tax report, one of the options that you do have in here is the detailed option, excuse me. Whereas you might only be doing this for summary for whatever reason. The great thing about detailed is that it does highlight it for you chit by chit, invoice by invoice. So if you're looking for that granular detail to kind of analyze things, this is a good option for you as well. Um, and then obviously using the edit tax reporting data or the VAT adjustments programs to correct any issues that arise. So, again, we just kind of walk through those options today just to make you aware, in case you're not, that those are available to you should you have to make any adjustments.